The leftist policies from California, Oregon, and Washington are here in Idaho, and you have been funding them. Unelected bureaucrats in the executive branch are the ones advocating for these destructive programs, and the Department of Health and Welfare is the most egregious example of this push to the left. The good news, however, is there is a concerted effort in the legislature to rein in this out-of-control agency. Several of their programs have been cut, limited, or repealed this year, preventing you from funding the demise of Idaho's hallmark conservative values. So what are these programs? Why is there cause for celebration? And where does this fight stand today? We will discuss all of this next on Fiscal Fridays. The Idaho Department of Health and Welfare has been using your money to subsidize drug abuse, the Pride agenda, and the abortion lobby for some time now. IFF documented this abuse and even criminal use of tax dollars in our first mini-documentary entitled Rogue Bureaucracy. Policies and programs that should trouble Idahoans included funding for the Idaho Harm Reduction Project, a Boise-based nonprofit that is 96% government funded. Their primary function was to provide free needles to drug users, but it was also recently discussed that they were teaching individuals how to safely smoke their drugs too. The IDHW was also responsible for distributing federal grants used to support sex education in Idaho's K-12 schools. These grants were being used to purchase Planned Parenthood-endorsed curricula that taught children how to get an abortion, so-called porn literacy, and how to hide it all from their parents. The department even illegally distributed and overspent federal child care stabilization block grants used to subsidize Idaho's daycare industry. How bad was it? Well, the department overspent by nearly $500,000 and distributed most of the money to just 4 recipients, including leftist groups. All of this is driven by a toxic culture within the department, largely steered by the Bureau of Equity and Strategic Partnerships. The Bureau administers the IDHW's diversity policy and provides diversity training mainly within the Division of Public Health. After years of going rogue, the legislature wielded the power of the purse to help bring the agency back into check. One such example included forcing the agency to address the severe malfeasance surrounding the child care stabilization block grants. To do this, the Joint Finance Appropriations Committee would not consider a budget to fund the IDHW's Division of Indirect Support Services until a corrective action plan was developed and executed. This would have crippled the agency, as the division is the central hub of administrative operations within the agency. The agency ultimately complied. In addition to this win, funds that would have been used for so-called harm reduction activities for drug users were redirected to provide the opioid reversal medication Narcan to first responders. On the policy side of things, the legislature even completely repealed the Syringe and Needle Exchange Act, ending the practice of disseminating taxpayer-funded needles. Additionally, sex education grants that would have gone to materials corrupting our children while they were at school were permanently removed from the budget. All funding for the Bureau of Equity and Strategic Partnerships was also moved from ongoing spending to one-time, meaning the agency has to come back next year to justify continuing its existence. As a bonus, the legislature also defunded a program designed to maintain a database and study Idahoans who chose not to get the COVID jab. So what does all this mean? Well, Idahoans have a cause to celebrate, but they must stay vigilant. The removal of these programs is a critically important step to contain an out-of-control executive agency. All too often, our elected representatives choose to outsource their authority to bureaucrats for political expediency. This has allowed mission creep and new, unlegislated programs to crop up in Idaho's agencies. These cuts are a great first step to restoring the original 3-branch system of checks and balances our government was originally designed to operate under. But the fight is not over, however. The agency has a history of repurposing grants in its federal slush fund to support defunded programs. They also added several new programs in their budget to subsidize Big Pharma by purchasing $5 million in free COVID vaccines, expanding their parent training program, and $3 million in general disease control funding. These new programs, in addition to some existing ones, are a gross expansion of government and simply should not exist. To close, the cuts made this year are a major step toward curbing the rogue bureaucracy. Though the fight is far from over, these moves will rightfully exercise the power of our elected representatives to check the executive branch. As a result, Idahoans might find they are better off with less government intervening in their lives. Thank you for supporting the content we produce at the Idaho Freedom Foundation. Be sure to like and subscribe to help spread our message of freedom, family, and small government. Also, with the legislative session in the books, be sure to request your free copy of the 2024 Freedom Index by visiting idahofreedom.org.